Okay, guys, we can go off camera. Then yeah, we can kick off, guys. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming through. We are just busy playing around with a couple of settings, just making sure that we don't have any technical problems. Guys, we're doing this for the first time, right? So if you experience any technical problems, please bear with us. But welcome. Thank you, everybody, for coming through. We've been waiting for this day for the longest time, and I've got fantastic speakers for you today that are going to be sharing their career journeys. As you guys know, in the Fetch Army, that's what we do. We share our career journeys. We speak about different things when it comes to our careers. And I told you that I'm going to be bringing you some fantastic speakers who are going to be sharing their career journeys, where they're going, where they've been. And that's what we are going to be speaking about today. I've got some amazing speakers. I got 3 speakers that we've actually chosen, particularly for this webinar. Yes, I can see the comments are coming through, guys. I'm so excited. I'm so happy. I was just worried that people were not going to be able to interact with us. So I see Nelson is there. I see Batobile is there, guys. Thank you so much for coming through. So we're going to start up. Pumzile is also here. I'm so happy. It looks like the Fetch Army has actually come through, and that makes me so excited. So in the beginning, the stream was actually private, so people couldn't comment. So now the fact that people are commenting, it actually makes me happy. Sani putting some fire emojis there. Really exciting stuff, guys. So, guys, we're going to kick it off. I've been telling you about my speakers, okay? And I said it's 3 amazing people. Guys, we actually managed to put this thing together in a space of 2 weeks. 2 weeks is all it took us, to come through here. So, guys, please let me know in the comments if I'm audible, if you can hear me, because I don't want to bring in speakers, then we have technical problems. And I'm sorry we started a little bit late. And thank you to my speakers as well for actually taking time, and understanding that, we're going to be sorting out some technical problems. So I won't waste your time. We're going to start with our first speaker today. So guys, please keep those fire emojis coming in the comment section, right? I'm going to start with the first speaker for the day, Dr. Oleboheng. And then you guys will notice when I introduce my guests, I do not, okay, affirmative, the sound is good. Perfect, right? I don't introduce my speakers with their bios because then it gives away the story. And I want them to tell your story, right? So I'm going to be bringing up our first speaker, Dr. Oleboheng, and then she's going to be sharing with us her career journey. Dr. Oleboheng, please come through, and you have your 25 minutes to tell us your story and give us your background. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sbu. So I was told to turn on my camera just temporarily. So hi, thank you. Thank you to everyone who is here. And I'm looking very, very forward to sharing my story. I know sharing your story can sometimes be a little bit intimidating to some degree, because I think most of us feel that our stories aren't important, but you just never know who could feel encouraged by what we've done in our own lives. So I'm very happy that you're all here, and I'm just going to turn off my camera now, and I'll just speak to a blank screen. So thank you to all of you, and thank you, Sbu, for inviting me. I don't even know where to start, but one thing I will say is that my speech today will probably have a lot of quotes, because I believe in quotes so much. I feel like that you can carry with you everywhere. Because even on the screen of my laptop, I have a quote by Lao Tzu. And it's basically, you know, that quote that's very popular, that a journey of 1,000 miles begins as a single step, right? Or begins with a single step. But I love the beginning part of that quote. It says, do the difficult things while they are easy, and do the great things while they are small, right? And for me, what this means is, there is no better time than now to do the thing that you've been desiring to do, right? Because we always think a better time will come, right? I will find myself in a better position at this point in my life. Then I will do the thing that I've always wanted to do. But according to this quote, it says, the things that are challenging, the things that are difficult, are actually easier now than they will ever be, right? So it's just like today, for instance, I've started a fitness journey. I am literally one of the most unfit people on the planet. I am extremely unfit. And I decided that it's time now to start going to the gym, right? But had I started this journey when I was 12, had I started being a very fit, active 12-year-old, it would have been difficult then. But it's even harder now than it would have been had I done the difficult thing while it was easier to do, right? It's the same as me starting my journey now. This is the right time. Now is the right time, because if I wait until I'm 40, it's going to be harder. You know what I mean? So that's why I love quotes, because every time I see that quote, it reminds me that what I'm doing is the right thing. No matter how difficult it can feel now, it's easier to bite the bullet. You know, people say you got to bite the bullet. It's easier to bite the bullet now and do the difficult thing now, because now is the right time. You know, even I think it's another Chinese proverb that says that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is now. I think the quote says something along those lines. I might be a little bit incorrect there, but basically everything that we desire to do in our lives, now is the right time to do it. Don't wait, right? I know sometimes we feel like we are not capable sometimes at this point in our lives, but you don't realize how much strength you have. And even as I said, even on this gym journey, it's been extremely challenging, but it has also reminded me that there is strength within me that I did not think that I had, right? So I just want to start there. And as I've said, there are going to be a lot of quotes in my 20 minutes, because I believe in quotes. I feel like they are life lessons that you can carry with you because they're short. It's like a life lesson that you carry in your pocket. So I just love that. So as I begin telling my story, my parents are pastors, right? So I grew up in a Bazalwane family. You know how Bazalwane are, especially the very strict ones. I grew up in those very strict Christian Muzalwane kind of churches, you know, the types of churches where you don't wear pants, you don't wear earrings, there's certain hairstyles you're not allowed to do, you don't get your nails done, none of those things, right? And as much as I resented growing up in that kind of environment, it was also very encouraging. So one of the things, again, as I said, I'll be doing a lot of quotes, and there's this quote in the Bible that I love. And it says, the race is not for the swift, and the fight is not for the strong, but time and chance are given to every man. And what this means to me is that this journey of life is like a race, right? But this race of life is not only given to those who can run faster than others, because we all know there are some people who are born in a much more privileged position than others, right? And there's nothing wrong with being born privileged. I hope that one day when I have children, I will be able to give them a lot of privilege, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. But for many people, when you're not born in a privileged position, it can be very demoralizing. But what this quote says is, this race of life is not only for those who can run fast. This fight of life is not only for those who are born strong, but opportunity is for everyone. And that's something that I found to be so encouraging in my life. Now, I was born in Zambia. My mom is Zambian. My father is South African. My dad is Tswana. My mom is Bemba from Zambia. And my dad went through the struggle, and he was in exile in different places on the continent. And eventually he landed up in Zambia, met my mom, they got married, and I was born. So I was born in Zambia in 1991 in Kalingalinga Hospital. That's the hospital I was born in. So it's a very small local clinic, right? And I came to South Africa when I was 2. So we came to South Africa, and I lived with my grandparents in Soweto from the time I was 2 until I was 5. And then, because my dad worked for the ANC for some time at that period, just after he had come out of exile, and he ended up working for national intelligence for NIA, he was able to save up some money, and we moved to the burbs. So we were the first Black family to move to the suburb of Danville. I don't know if anyone's familiar with Danville, but I grew up in Danville. So Danville is like, it's a small suburb very close to Atteridgeville in Pretoria. So I grew up there, and I didn't grow up poor, but my parents were not wealthy, right? I would say we were middle class people, maybe a little bit lower middle class to middle class kind of situation. And I grew up in a 2-parent household. All that was fine, wonderful, right? But one of the things, and I know, Subu, you were very intentional about telling us to talk about what was the word you used? The turning points, right? That what was the turning point in your life? Because I feel like there are certain moments in your life that happen, and they're very impactful, right? They have a big impact on you. So the first turning point, I would say, was I grew up with the privilege, because I believe privilege, and I think we're all privileged in some way or form, right? So there are certain ways, some of us are genetically privileged, right? So some people are taller than others, stronger, right? It's genetic privilege. Some people are maybe born in a certain household where they have certain privileges, right? So when I look at my life, I had the privilege of an educated mother. So at that time, because when my mom was in Zambia, she was studying law at the University of Zambia at UNZA. And so when she came to South Africa, she was one of the very, 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 very few Black women with a degree, right? And this was a great source of pride for my father. My father loves an independent, educated woman, right? And for some reason, I don't know how life turns out sometimes. For some reason, my mom wasn't really able to leverage her degree as I felt she could have been able to at that time. Now, there were so many different reasons, right, that things just don't go the way that you expect. But I do believe that growing up with a mother that was educated was a big privilege for me, right? Because I believe that in life, when we can see certain things, they don't feel as difficult to acquire, right? So because I grew up with a mother who was educated, she had a degree, she had a law degree, I could look at her and say, okay, so education is not something that's difficult to acquire. It's something that I can aspire to, right? And this is why I believe that what children see and what we see in our immediate environment has a big influence on what we feel is possible for us, right? So it's just like, I always use this example of when I was in high school, I had this friend, a very good friend of mine from Kenya. Her name is Kendi, right? So Kendi was from Kenya, and she would always aspire to marriage, right? So for me, I couldn't understand, because I'm looking at her. I mean, we're 15 or 16 years old, 17, however old we were. And marriage was the furthest thing from my mind. But for her, that's all she would talk about. And I couldn't understand why, until I slept over, or I spent a weekend at her house, and I witnessed the way her parents interacted with each other, right? And I realized that this is the reason that this young lady is so fixated on marriage. And one day I'm going to get married, and I'm going to find a husband, and my husband and I are going to, live happily ever after. It's because in her immediate environment, what she saw was a very, very connected couple, right? So that's why I believe so much that what we see in our immediate environment, we aspire towards. So that, I believe, was my first turning point, was seeing my mother be an educated Black woman. It encouraged me and made me realize or believe that that was a possibility for me. It's just like if you grow up in a home where your parents are entrepreneurs and they're multi-billionaires, right? Becoming a multi-billionaire for you won't feel like something that's very difficult to acquire, because you've seen it happen. So when I was a child, I remember when my dad, sometimes when we'd be driving to Soweto or driving wherever to Johannesburg, anywhere in Johannesburg, we would drive past UNISA, right? And I would always tell my mom, one day I'm going to study at UNISA. Now, I didn't study at UNISA. I went to the University of Pretoria. But again, it was that idea of seeing an educated woman. But another thing was, as I said, the challenge I felt in my home. Now, I don't know if maybe I'm oversharing and my parents are going to slap me over the head, but the challenge I felt in my home was because my mom didn't become all that my dad thought she would, right? Because again, as I've said, my dad is not the kind of man who's jealous of a woman when she succeeds. If my mom had become the president of South Africa, well, she couldn't have because she's from Zambia, but if she had become the president, he would boldly and gladly say, this is my wife is the president. He would never be intimidated by that. Because I remember even when I was younger, everywhere he would go, he would say, yes, my wife is a lawyer. My wife has a law degree, right? And I feel like that was also something that had a lot of influence on me, because it made me feel that ambition was not something to be afraid of, right? So my mom being educated and my father allowing the space for a woman to be all that she can be, I felt was such an important and influential part of my journey. And as I was growing, another thing that I felt really impacted me was a beautiful woman by the name of Oprah Winfrey. Okay. I loved Oprah so much as a child, and I still do love her now so much, because I feel like she had such a profound influence on my life. Never met her. I hope that one day I get the opportunity to. But there was one day when I was watching Oprah, and on one occasion, she had a woman on her show from Zimbabwe. Her name was Tererai Trent. And this woman had such a difficult and challenging life. But while she was living in the village, and I think she was a child bride and she had many children, and she wasn't even like 20 yet, and she had, I don't know, 2 or 3 children, and her life was quite challenging. But one day, a person, I think this person was a missionary, came to the village and told her about, you can be educated, even though as a child, she wasn't really allowed to go to school, because sometimes in villages, they don't really promote girls getting an education. But one thing that encouraged me so much about this woman's story was she wrote down several goals or several things that she wanted to achieve. She wrote them down. I think her first goal was she wanted to go and live in the United States. Then the second goal was she wanted to get a degree. Third goal was she wanted to get a master's degree. And the fourth goal was she wanted to get a PhD. And she wrote those goals down. and folded them in a little piece of paper and put them in a tin. And she hid that tin under a rock. And she said every time she felt discouraged, because apparently her husband was very abusive and she just had a very difficult time, every time she would feel discouraged, she would go back to that rock and look at what she had written on this paper that she'd put inside a tin. And long story short, she is now Dr. Tererai Trent, right? And witnessing that story, again, I believe that when what we see and what we feed our consciousness with, we begin to feel like that's a possibility for us. So that was the first time that I felt that I can do this. This is something that I can aspire towards. I want to be called doctor one day, right? So it became something that I wanted to aspire towards. The next thing that I felt Oprah really contributed to for me was her story. And that's why I said today, let me tell my story. You just never know who could be encouraged. And I was watching her show, and she talked about this one day when she was very young, because, you know, she grew up very poor. And I don't know whose house this was that she went to, but she went to the house of some woman, a white lady, a friend of hers, or I don't know what the relationship was. So she went there, and she said when she went to into this woman's home, I think she went into the kitchen and she looked outside the window, and she said this woman had the most beautiful garden. And there were a lot of trees in that garden, right? And when Oprah looked, she said, oh my goodness, this means that rich people must have trees, right? So one day I would like to be rich so that I can have trees. And she said, as she was looking out this woman's window, she saw, I think it was 6 trees or something like that, right? And many, many years passed, and she had completely forgotten about that incident or that moment in her life. She completely forgot about it. And many years passed, many, many, many years. And now she's a billionaire, all of that. And she said one day, as she's standing in her kitchen, I think it was, she looked outside her window and she saw thousands of trees, right? And she always had this saying as she told this story. And she says that God can dream a bigger dream for you than you can dream for yourself. And I found that to be so encouraging, because these 2 stories for me signified the power of vision, right? So at that point, I realized that I have to give myself permission to dream, and that it's okay to want to be great. It's okay to want to live well. It's okay to want to have nice things, right? It's not a bad thing. And that was the point I feel in my life where I gave myself permission to dream and to want what I want. And what I did at that point was, I'm sure many of you have done this before or you're familiar with this, was I created a vision board. Now, people have different perspectives. Should you do a vision board? Shouldn't you? For me, I'm not married to the idea of vision boards, but I am married to the importance of vision, right? And the importance of putting your vision down somewhere, writing it down on a piece of paper, putting it in pictures on a vision board, whatever it is that resonates with you. But I do believe that vision is something that you must write down or put it down somewhere, look at it on a regular basis. So that was the first time I drafted a vision board. So I created a vision board. I put all of these goals that I wanted to achieve and all of that. And long story short, again, it was this whole thing of, I believed that education was something that could transform my life, something that could change my life, put me in a different situation than where I was. And I created my first vision board, and I had different images on there. I had academic success. I had a picture of myself there, or not myself, I had a picture of a woman with a PhD gown on. Right. So I had a picture of a woman with a PhD gown. I even had stuck that same picture on my desk at home when I would study. I would look at that picture and it would remind me that this is where I'm going. And long story short, finished matric, did really well in matric, got a few distinctions, right? And I ended up going to university, to the University of Pretoria. And I remember I had a conversation with my friends. I don't know if Shumani is in the live stream right now, because Shumani was actually the one who introduced us, Sbu. And I remember I had a conversation with my friends. Shumani was there, and another one of my friends were there, and we were talking about education, university, all of this stuff. And as we're talking, they were like, because we were now, I think, in our third year. So we're just about to graduate. So, you know, when you're at that point, when you're about to graduate, all of you are talking about what's next, right? So they're saying, okay, I'm going to go get a job. I'm going to go start a business. We're all talking about the things we want to do. And then I said, well, I'm staying, okay, because I'm trying to get to PhD level. And they were aghast. Okay, they said, girl, how long are you going to be here? And I told them, well, I've already calculated that from the time I started my first degree, from my first year until my PhD, it'll take me about 10 years, right? And you know, when you're young, when you're 17 or 18, 19, when you're young, 10 years sounds like a long time. You know, it sounds like such a long time to a young mind. So everyone was like, my goodness, girl, you're going to be here for 10 years. But again, the power of vision, right? Because I had that vision board. I had that picture of me getting this PhD. Other things that I had on my vision board was I had hand drawn a map of the world on my vision board. And I had written by hand, and I still have that vision board. I think it's under my bed somewhere, but I had handwritten all of the different countries that I wanted to see. Because, you know, as kids, when we would watch TV shows like Top Billing, you know, there were certain things that successful people did when you would watch Top Billing. They traveled, okay? They had nice cars. They lived in nice homes. They went to nice events, right? So that was all the stuff that I had on my vision board was aligned with that, okay? So I had committed myself at that age of, I don't know, 17 or however long, or however old I was, that this is something that I was going to do. So let me see, where am I here? Okay, so one of the things that I felt as well that what was so impactful for me was in my third year, in my final year, one of the lecturers, Dr. Leonard, shout out to Dr. Leonard. Sbu, how am I doing on time? I feel like I have like 3 minutes.
Yeah, your time is running out. But
okay, I could feel it. I could feel it. Okay, give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes, I'll be done.
Perfect.
Okay, so I had a lecturer in my third year at university. Her name was Dr. Leonard. And one of the things that she said as she was talking to us, and you know, like lecturers and teachers, they have that thing of they're lecturing and then they all of a sudden stop and start talking about something else, right? And she ended up saying that, because at this point, we were all supposed to start applying for jobs, right? And one of the things that she said to us is that you can never be upset about not being chosen if you don't put your name in the hat, right? And that's what life is all about. And that's something that I feel has guided me so much, is that I have never been afraid to put my name in the hat. There have even been things that I felt unqualified for, that I have put my name in the hat and raised my hand and said, I will do this. I will volunteer for this. It's better to say yes. It's better that you say yes to something and learn on the job than to say no and regret and think, man, maybe I could have done this. Because there are so many times in life when you'll look at certain situations and you'll see someone succeeding and you realize later on that that person is not smarter than you. How did this person do this? But it's because you undermined yourself at a time in your life when your only job was to raise your hand and say, here I am, I can do this, right? And long story short, I finished my first degree, finished my honors, and I started working at a consulting firm and I absolutely hated it. And I hated working in this consulting job. And I told my dad, I'm really not enjoying this consulting job. And at that time, I was halfway through my master's. And my dad said to me, you're still living at home. You don't have to worry about bills and all of those things, right? So take a break from that job and focus on finishing your master's and start applying for jobs while you're busy. Then one thing that he said that I felt was so wise, he said, reach out to your professors that you are working with or studying with, and let them know this is who I am. Again, it's putting your name in the hat, right? Let them know this is who I am. I'm in your class. I'm interested in lecturing. Because remember, you have to try different things before you figure out what sticks, right? And eventually, my professor, my late professor, Prof. Renelle Rensburg, an absolute superstar, she sent me a message and said, girl, we're actually looking for somebody right now to fill a junior lecturer position. And funny enough, junior lecturer positions didn't even exist. They had to kind of create a position for me, right? But again, I was not qualified really, because for you to be a lecturer, you have to have a master's. I didn't have my master's yet, so I was not qualified. But I put my name in the hat and I said, this is who I am. I'm willing to do this. So I feel like in life, the biggest obstacle is ourselves. We are our own biggest obstacle. And if I can leave you with one lesson, it's that you need to put your name in the hat for opportunities. And because I put my name in the hat, I served on a board for University South Africa. And that was something that I did for free. I didn't get paid for that board position, but it went onto the CV. I was not qualified. I raised my hand. None of the qualified people in the room were willing to do it because nobody was going to pay them. But then I was unqualified. I raised my hand and said, I'm going to do it. Did a good job. So I got that board position and I was able to put it on my CV. And now because of that, it led to other board positions. I then got a board position at Momentum that I'm still busy with. I got a board position at Gibbs that I'm still busy with. And all of this came from me getting out of my own way and saying, Uleboheng, you can do this, right? There is nobody else in the room that's smarter than you, right? And it's all about what we are willing to do and the effort we're willing to put in. Now, final story as I conclude. So as you know, I got the PhD. I want to give my other colleagues a chance to speak. I got the PhD. I was the youngest person to graduate with my PhD in my faculty for that year, right? So I got the PhD. Now I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Pretoria, several board positions. And that all came from me getting out of my own way and having vision, right? And never underestimating myself, putting my name in the hat, whether I'm qualified or not. And if I get it, I will learn how to do it on the job, right? And yes, so I feel like that's the entire story. So put your name in the hat and don't be afraid to pursue opportunities, because there is nobody smarter than you. Everybody is just faking it. So you also need to fake it till you make it, and just put your name in the hat and explore as many opportunities as you can. There is never a better time for you than now. I think that's all from me, Sbu. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Oleboheng. You killed it. You killed it. And I think when you're talking about putting your name in the hat, guys, job descriptions win. Everybody just wants to follow job description and not do something spectacular. But I think what you're talking about is, guys, get out of your comfort zone, do something spectacular, and stop sticking to this whole thing. Job description, job description. When are you gonna do superstar things? You know, so Dr. Oleboheng, that was fire. I really enjoyed that. Guys, put your name in the hat, right? Igama ngaphathi kwesicoko, guys. That's what we want to see here. Next up, we've got another amazing speaker. All of my speakers are amazing. You know, Motate is going to come through. She's going to share with us, you know, her story so that we can continue to get inspired. Guys, don't forget, this webinar is brought to you by Career Emporium. So if you are looking for quality, premium career coaching solutions with the best in the continent, Life Coach Sbu, just go to www.careeremporium.co.za. Go sign up so that we can sort you out. But our next speaker is Motate, another wonderful person. She's very fun to be around. I always say Motate is very fun to be around. You know, we talk a lot. We met at the YLC event. Then I met her at the African Women Chartered Accountants event. She's all over, I'm all over, you know. So that's when we met. Then we started chatting. And then she said, I'm putting my hand up. I want to share my story as well. So Mutate, Batate. Mutate, I hope you can hear me.
Hi, Sbu. Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. Okay, cool
Am I
stuff.
visible? Am I audible?
Yes, we can see you. You are audible. So guys, the reason why I said they must put their cameras on so that you guys can see it's the same people on the post. I didn't cheat you guys, okay? So Mutate, I'm going to stop disturbing you. Please do your magic.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Sbu. As he has said, he has instructed us to switch on our cameras to make sure that you are comfortable, that we are real. We are not AI or some robot. So, hi, everyone. My name is Mutate Sewelo. And yeah, I'm so excited to be here with the Fetch Army, and I will switch off my camera and start with my presentation. Thanks. All right, cool. So yeah, it's truly an honor to be part of this event today and to share my journey with some of you. As I've mentioned, my name is Mutate Sewelo. I come from a small township in Pretoria called Atteridgeville. I love coming from Pretoria. It has the best people, the best food, and the best music. I mean, I'm a pianist from Pretoria. So yeah, that's why Sbu kind of says I'm fun to be around, I guess. But today I just wanted to share, you know, about my career. It hasn't been a very long career, but it's been quite eventful thus far, and it's been filled with ups and downs. And I guess the objective is just to share some of that, right? I'm a qualified chartered accountant by profession. And I mean, growing up in Atteridgeville, I didn't know a chartered accountant. I had never met one personally. And it is a career that I chose from reading a career book. It was a toss between being an actuary and a chartered accountant. And I knew that, you know, I wanted to make a great impact in society. I wanted to make a lot of money. And yeah, I kind of just decided, hey, you know, these chartered accountants seem to be making a lot of money. And I was privileged enough to get a bursary from one of the big 4 audit firms after my matric. I did very well in matric, got a few distinctions as well, and I managed to get a bursary. And I worked for one of the big 4 firms. Working at the big 4 firms, I've worked in South Africa. I've also worked in the big 4 firms in America. And it was such an amazing and life-changing event. And currently, I work for a bank, as you will see on my title. And I've worked for a bank for a couple of years now. And I've kind of traveled throughout the bank. I've had 3 different roles. I've worked in back office, I've worked in middle office, and currently I work in front office, where I'm in charge of the business development. And business development is a fancy term for selling. I sell for a living. And I'm accountable for growing a business and in the corporate and investment space. But I think that just gives you a high-level synopsis of my career, and I've moved around quite a bit, right? And today, in the spirit of speaking about career growth, right, and having full control of your career, you know, many people just believe that, you know, they want to blame your manager, you want to blame your employer. But I think today I just want to emphasize the fact that a lot of power lies in your hands, right? And this whole concept of owning your career it's an ongoing journey for many of us, right? And it's really not about the destination. It's not about, like my aspirations is to become a CEO one day. But it's not just about getting there and being a CEO, but it's all about all the different, the journey and the different roles that I've had to take up in getting there, right? And saying and enjoying that journey. And today I just want to share some of the key learnings I've gotten along the journey, and I hope that they'll be very useful to you. And, to be honest, nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. I'm still learning. And some of the things that I'm sharing, I'm also trying to practice them. Some of them I've gotten right. Some of them I'm still learning. I'm not there yet. But I think that, throughout my journey, I have learned from various people and various experiences that these things kind of help you to hone in and be able to grow in your career. So my first point is about determining your North Star, right? Your true north. Where are you going? Always remember where you're going. At the beginning of the year, I try to kind of have a set of goals to say, this is what I want to achieve for myself. And I think that writing things down as well always helps you to be accountable to yourself. But it also helps you see how far you have come. And it's always important to remember that, especially when the journey becomes really difficult and you have a bad year or bad few years and you feel like you haven't really made a lot of progress. Try and write things down. Try and say, this is where I see myself, and continue to assess that goal and continue to look at it and say, redefine it, see what makes sense, look at what has become relevant within the economy. Like, you could have done your goals 3 years ago, 5 years ago. There wasn't TikTok that's Boo's crazy about. There wasn't ChatGPT. A lot of things have changed. AI, technology. So always try and see how you can leverage off what is around, what is available. But remember that you are your own CEO. You have to determine your own KPIs, and you have to hold yourself accountable and have those difficult conversations with yourself. When you let yourself down, also remember to treat yourself with kindness. I know that personally, I tend to struggle with treating myself with kindness because you have such high standards for yourself and you believe that you should be further than you are, and you're continuously looking around and saying, well, I should be here, look at my peers. But always look outside for inspiration and not for comparison. You must always be focused on your own journey. And that's why I'm saying it's so key to document your journey and document your true north so that you do not get deterred as you look around you. But you always try and remember your why. Remember why you want to be where you want to be. I'll say I want to be a CEO. I have to remember my why, the impact that I want to have in society, the impact that I want to have in corporate South Africa and make a difference in the corporate space. I have to remember that why every time when things are a bit difficult and I'm feeling like I'm not making as much progress. My second point would really be around self-leadership, right? I spoke about having those tough conversations with yourself. It's not always easy, right? And it's not easy when you are not doing well or you've dropped the ball, but you have to be honest with yourself. You have to hold yourself accountable, and you hold yourself accountable to see where did you go wrong. And how do you ensure that you improve from where you are? Your biggest competition is yourself. You do not look at other people and compare yourself with other people, but you just try to be a better version of yourself. So today you want to be a better version than you were yesterday. And discipline is a very big and key thing to all of us, right? Being disciplined is a gift to yourself. And being disciplined is not always about, it's easy to be disciplined when you're like, okay, I'm trying to lose 5 kgs and I'm trying to to attain X or Y. But really, it's about the day-to-day decisions and making sure that you are making the best decisions for yourself, right? So what you eat, what you read, how you spend your time, who you spend your time with, all of these things are very critical to determining where you end up, right? And it's important that you continue to assess this. We all know we get tired and you feel like, oh, I don't want to read the book, or I don't want to eat an apple. But, you know, whatever you are not doing, you are choosing to forfeit. So you must always remember that the impact of discipline and diligence in your work, in your life will always translate into your work. So you will automatically see that as you kind of build up that muscle of discipline, of eating right, that translates into your work, right? And that translates in you doing better at work, being more committed, and not being someone that is swayed by how you feel. We all know that it's been a tough couple of years, COVID, there's losses, there's a lot of challenges in life, but you need to kind of learn to not let your emotions rule you and always operate from a point of view of how you feel, but you must try and always operate from a point of view of saying, you know what, this is what I need to do, and do it, get on with that task. Another key lesson that I have learned as well is facing your fears and doing it scared and failing forward, what is called failing forward. And I've had to learn this in various ways. Like today, I've been invited here to speak to some of you, and it's not an easy task. People will be like, oh, you're so good at speaking. Oh, you should do it more. But every time I do it, I feel scared. I was saying to Isabel, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. And, you know, but it doesn't mean that it should deter me from doing it, because I know that it is a skill that I need. It is a skill that will help me, and I cannot stay in my comfort zone forever. You know, when you are young, you're in school, you do public speaking, and then you grow up and you're scared of speaking and you don't know why. And I guess, you know, when you're younger, you are less fearless than when you're older. And you'll see that I would be like, oh no, but I don't sound like this person, or I don't look like that person. And all those things are just they were just ways for me to chicken out of doing what I'm scared to do. But I think I kind of realized that, you know, you just need to keep doing it. You'll only get better. You will not sound like that Azania or Anela Mdoda if you don't do it. You need to continue to put yourself out there and face your fears, so you would know whatever you're scared of doing. And I would encourage you really to go out there and seek opportunities that allow you to do what you're scared of doing. Think about your own career. Think about things that you've been shying away from, and start putting your hand up. Right? Failure is a stepping stone to success. If you don't do well, you have found a way that you shouldn't do something, right? It's one lesson that you've learned of, okay, when I do this, I shouldn't do it like this. Next time you fail, I shouldn't do it like this. And eventually you just get better at it, right? And I know that even in my career and having gone through being a chartered accountant, it's a grueling process. And I did fail as well. You know, I experienced failure, and I had to learn that it doesn't rule me out. It doesn't make me less than. Today, when I am in a platform or I'm in a boardroom or in a meeting, nobody's holding my transcript and saying, hey, you failed this subject or you failed this board exam. Nobody cares about that. It's about how I show up and how prepared I am. And this is just to encourage everyone to say, you know, don't be scared to fail, but know that as you continue to fail, it makes you a better person. It makes you a better leader. You don't need to beat up yourself about it, but you come back more confident, because the more confident you are, the more you stand out in your place of work. My third point is around self-awareness and knowing your worth, right? It's important to understand your strengths, your weaknesses, your values, right? When you know these things about yourself, you're able to identify in your career what you need to improve or what you need to change. And this is you, as I said, you are the CEO of your company. I am the CEO of Motate Incorporated. I hire, I fire, I decide whether I go left or I decide whether I go right. And I think what is important about knowing your strength or knowing your weakness, I remember the story I was reading about a watch, right? And they said a father gave his son a watch and he said, go to the pawn shop and ask how much this thing is. And then go to like Rolex or a premium retailer, ask how much this watch is. Go to the man across the road and ask how much this watch is. And this child went to the various places. And the principle of this thing was that, he went to the person on the street and he's like, how much is it? They're like 100 Rand. He went to the pawn shop. He's like, how much is this? They're like 5,000 Rand. He went to the premium store and he's like, how much is this? They're like 100,000 Rand. And the point of the story is what it taught me was to know my value. And sometimes people won't recognize your value. And that's okay. You should not be bogged down by people that are dead set on misunderstanding you or not getting you or not seeing your value. But once you know yourself, you know that actually I'm worth it. And I think I saw this really as something important, and I continuously strive to prove to myself and to no one else outside of that, but for myself, to affirm myself, to say, you know what, continue to do things and mark your own script and say, hey, I did well here, I could improve here. And I think one of the experiences I had was working in PwC in America. And this was such a great experience for me because really it changed my life, right? To be able to work in a global firm, to be in America, to have Americans reporting to me, little old me. I think that it was an enlightening process, and knowing that I was able to show up, I was able to speak to a CFO of a mining company in America, and they understood what I was saying. They saw value in what I was adding. And this was important for me to prove to myself that I am able to show up. And you should always remember that, because once you are confident in your own abilities, the way you show up, it's clear that you're confident. It is clear you know what you're doing. And in that same, spirit, you also need to know yourself, because it's important to know when things no longer serve you. When I left my previous organization, I kind of did an assessment of my skills, what I enjoyed doing, and what I wanted to do in future. And the organization, as great as it was, the amazing opportunities I got, I learned a lot while I was still there. But I realized that it was time for me to leave, and that table no longer served me. And it wasn't the issue of the organization. It's just what I wanted for myself and what I wanted to achieve for myself. And I'll always be grateful for where I worked previously. But I think that when you know yourself and you know your worth, you are able to make those decisions. You do not always continue to just keep working and keep pushing and not feel like you are getting to where you want to get to, but you actually then start to look at, where can I go? And I decided to move into the financial services sector because I'm a person who's very passionate about people. I'm a person that is passionate about making a positive impact in society. And the financial services sector made sense for me because of the impact it has in society. in financial inclusion, and I believed that I could learn a lot. So I think that it's also key to be targeted about where you want to go, why you want to go there. And it's also okay to change your mind. But I think that it's just important that you continue to assess and you derive your decisions out of some sort of research that you would have done, right? So make sure, guys, that you know yourself, you know your worth. When you go through the system, I've always felt like, you go to public school and you're a number there, and then I joined an audit firm and it was like 10,000 of us there, and you like go to varsity and you go to work and there's always so many of you, but you're not just a number. You are you, and no one can be better at being you than you can. So always try to show up as the best version of yourself. And the best version of yourself is not the same every day. I've had to learn that, some days your best version is 110%. Some days the best version is 10%, and it's okay. But you know that you've shown up and you've shown off to the best of your ability on a continuous basis. My fourth principle is really around prioritizing learning. Be excellent and be knowledgeable and being a subject matter expert. In your career, it's very important that you embrace continuous learning and improve yourself. You must invest in acquiring new skills and being knowledgeable. I always say this to my team, whenever we're engaging, I'm like, be that person everyone wants in the room, right? We can't make a decision until Mothat is here because she knows best about X, Y, and Z. So invest your time in acquiring those skills. People take things lightly, and there are courses everywhere on YouTube for free, on Udemy, many thousands of platforms. And most of them are free. Wi-Fi is accessible at most places, and it's free. And it's like, put in that effort into yourself. Be obsessed with understanding what you are doing and why you are doing it and how it drives value for the organization. Because when you understand that, you have a lot of pride in what you're doing. And I remember this story I was reading about when they were taking a man to the moon at NASA for the first time. And they speak about how they had infiltrated the message of pride around taking a man to the moon. And there was a reporter that was on the premises, and he was interviewing different people after the person had landed on the moon, and everyone was celebrating, and he was speaking to various people, senior people, junior people. And on his way out, he meets this guy, and the guy's holding a broom. And he was like, okay, let me ask this guy. And he's like, hey, how are you? How do you feel? He's like, oh, I'm so great. He's like, how do you feel about what has happened? He's like, I'm so proud of myself because I'm part of the team that took a man to the moon. And as small as it might seem like his task is, as small as it might seem like his role was, it is so key that he saw his importance, that him cleaning the premises was important to getting the man on the moon. And when you start to see the importance of what you do, no matter how big or how small, you're able to come and show up with passion, and you don't undermine what you do. You do it with excellence. And I think I've seen this, continuously in my journey. As I've mentioned, in the bank, I've moved 3 times. And in each role, I had to acclimatize very quickly. And it was not easy. It's still not easy. It's not easy to move into a new space, to learn new things, to learn new people. I remember, when I was starting my old job, it was tough. I found myself one day I was sitting and I'm just like having an episode because I was like, this is so difficult. I'm not getting it. I'm not understanding it. And there was a lot of pressure to deliver. But in those moments, you learn that's when you're in the fire and you're learning and you are kind of getting that skill. And you are, when you are developing a muscle, they say it breaks because you are developing that skill and you are lifting and building that muscle. So don't, undermine what you do. Always show up in excellence, no matter what you are doing. Another thing is around leadership and influence, right? And it's important in your career that you learn to develop others and influence others positively. And you don't need a title. You can operate in any sphere of influence and you lift as you rise. You don't need an office or you are heading up a team. You can do it anyway, in your community, in your church groups, at work. It's important to learn to think outside of yourself and to learn from different people. Always try and take an opportunity to make someone's day great because it fills your own cup. And when your cup is full, you are able to operate from a position of power. I always take time to speak to the person at the canteen, to a person you meet at the bus stop or wherever you are, in a store somewhere. Because as you learn from different people, you are able to impart your own knowledge. It's not always about work and what you know at work, but you learn the skill of being a leader in different ways and different platforms. So you don't do it to be seen, but really you just never know who is watching you or who is listening at that point. Another key lesson is around collaboration. And this one has really also been one of the life-changing ones in my career and in my life. Make sure that you have a personal board of directors. And you might ask, what is that, right? That is a board of directors, people in your life that have your best interest at heart, that will tell you the truth, that you can trust. And in this board of directors, it is said that you should have somebody who mentors you. This is somebody who sees the light in you and wants to help you explore it and let you shine. You should have somebody who sponsors you. This would be someone that would speak for you or on behalf of you in a room where you are not there, right? You would have the critic. This is somebody who will tell you the truth, who will say, you messed up there. You could have done better. And who will tell you that with honesty, but with care. You'll have somebody who's a peer, somebody you respect, somebody who's at your level, who can speak, who can understand where you are, who can understand your journey. You have the person who inspires you as well. This is somebody that you look up to. Maybe it's somebody who is in a position already that you want to be in, somebody that can guide you and share their journey. You will have the confidant. This is somebody that you can share your deepest, darkest fears and feelings, and somebody that can hold you and give you a safe space to speak. You also need what they call the expert. And this is somebody who is knowledgeable in your area of influence, where you are operating in your career. And this is somebody that can guide you in terms of getting that technical expertise and making sure that you yourself become an expert in your field. And lastly would be someone who's a connector. There's always that one person who knows everyone. I'm sort of a connector as well. And people tap into me like, oh, do you know whoever? And some strange reason I might know them and connect other people. But you always need that person because they are the person who can introduce you to different networks. And really, it's because you need these different people because you do not operate in isolation. I know I've been very blessed with amazing mentors, and they open up doors for you that you didn't know were possible. And I think speaking to someone who looks like you or who looks different to you is always valuable because you get a different perspective. And as you try to grow yourself, different perspectives help you, right? And it's not to say that everything they do, you love it, or you generally want to take it on and become that. Some things you might learn from your mentor and you're like, I actually don't like that. I don't want to do that. And it's okay. It's not always about agreeing. It's just about making sure that you have people that are mirrors across your life that can mirror to you. And these people are also the same people that will help you, that will catch you when you're having difficult times in your life, in your career. And that will remind you of the power within you because they've seen you operate from a point of excellence. And they'll remind you when you don't feel sure of yourself that you are great and you are worthy and deserving to be in the rooms that you are in. I think what's also very key about the people around you and collaborating is the importance of having a coffee. I think having a coffee has really evolved my career. I have coffees frequently with different people for different reasons. Don't be scared to have a coffee. It's always good to show people who you are, the true you. You know, when you're at work, you're performing, you're doing well, you're sitting in your corner, you're performing and you're delivering results, but that's not enough. You need to show people who you are. You need to show your secret sauce. And that is usually done for me in those coffee sessions. When you're speaking to somebody and they're picking your brain, when you're picking their brain, you actually start to realize that, oh, firstly, the person you aspire to be or the person who's your boss or whoever is human, right? They have their own flaws. They're on their own journey. And that gives you some comfort to know that you can also make it. You are also deserving and you are also worthy. Another point that has been very key for me has been volunteering. I have had mentors who have encouraged me to volunteer, and I'm forever indebted and so grateful to them. As Boo mentioned earlier around how we met, is through volunteering. I volunteer in a host of organizations for different reasons. I'm very passionate about, gender issues, and I do not believe that you should sit on the sidelines and complain the whole time. Oh, women are not doing this, or women are not doing that. You get involved, right? Find a cause that you are passionate about and get involved. The benefits of that are the people that you will meet there. As I've mentioned, that's where I met Boo, and now I have this amazing opportunity to engage with all of you. I've also met the most amazing peers in these spaces. I've met leaders that are peers to me, that I now call friends and sisters and brothers. And I can just pick up a phone call and say, hey, can you help me with this, or can you help me with that? And this is purely by volunteering, right? So if you know that there's a specific mentor you've spotted, see which organization that person is involved in and get involved in those as well, because that is the perfect way to get in touch with that person without having to be random and send a LinkedIn DM and be like, hi, please mentor me, please mentor me. They don't know you, right? And the best way to sometimes get some face time and prove what you can do is through volunteering, and getting involved in these things. You also learn a lot. You learn a lot of skills. I mean, most of the speaking I have done, and Sbu saying, oh, she's always holding a mic, I did it mostly in outside platforms, in the YLCs, in the AWCAs, and I felt more comfortable to also do it there because I didn't feel like the spotlight is that big, and I felt like it was a safe space to fail, because it's not like my boss is there and is watching me and then tomorrow is just like, oh, you didn't do that well. So try and make sure that, look at the skills that you're trying to gain, right? You have determined your true north and you're saying, I want to reach X point. Now, look at all the skills that you need to get to that point. I remember one of the CEOs was saying, like, if you want to be a CEO, look at the job spec of a CEO and say, what are they looking for? And work backwards and say, which skill is on this that I don't have? And I did not wait to say, no, I must be an exco. No, I must be an executive. No, I must be in this level. I must be head of this. I went out and said, okay, if I need to lead people, I can do it outside. I'm part of a committee. I'm on the executive committee of these organizations, and I have people reporting to me. So you don't always have to wait to be a manager at work to manage people. Find different ways to get the same skill. If you know you like running or cycling, join those clubs, head up positions in those places, take up space and get those skills. Don't make excuses. Like the previous speaker said, she volunteered on a board. I also volunteered on a board because I was like, well, I want to be a board member, but I've never been on a board. The best way to do it is to volunteer and learn the skill so that I'm able to add value. Don't be so obsessed with titles and, showing that you do things, but actually know what kind of value you want to add. When you're trying to be on a board, they'll always say, why do you want to be on a board? And you're like, okay, everyone's on a board. I think being on a board is cool or whatever. But know your why. Know exactly why you want to be on that board. Know why you want to be on a board of that specific entity. I'm very specific about the entities I'm also affiliated to because it's causes that I feel passionate about. One of the NPOs I'm volunteering on, they tackle substance abuse. That's a big thing. When you come from a township and you see young people that are riddled by drugs and they're not going anywhere, and your own peers that you grew up with that are now taking drugs, it's something that was personal for me, having seen it in my own community. So don't always chase things and chase titles and chase everything that glitters, but chase your passion. Chase your true north. Know that this is what I want to do and pursue that, because as you pursue things with pure intentions, nobody's saying you mustn't like money or want money. Yes, you must earn well. You must be paid your worth. You must be paid for what you do. But when your key driver is your passion and the impact you're trying to do, opportunities tend to show up along the way. So don't get frustrated. Just find other ways around it. And I think volunteering for me has been one of the key things that has unlocked immense amount of opportunities for me. I know, like last month, actually the beginning of this month, I was on national TV for the first time. And it is through volunteering. Speaking about the organization I volunteer for, and I was there with my mentor, but that opportunity wouldn't have necessarily come at work. But because I was volunteering, I was able to get that opportunity. So I would implore you and encourage you to volunteer wherever, your passion lies. And in closing, I would just want to emphasize betting on yourself. Believe in yourself. Don't doubt yourself. Don't disqualify yourself. Don't not put your name in the hat. And don't be afraid to fail. I think you need to also remember that we are in an environment that is highly competitive, right? Corporate spaces, wherever you're working, wherever you're showing up, you're not the only one. It's not like this opportunity just has Sbu's name, and then nobody else can take it. So you need to remember that, and you need to remember that you are worthy of being in those spaces. So show up as your best self, but don't discount yourself. Always try. Put yourself out there and say, and be willing to learn, and be willing to acknowledge that you don't know. You know, I've recently joined a new team, and it's a new space altogether. And I have to continuously be honest with myself to say, I'm not where I'd love to be, but I put in those extra hours. I put in the extra time to make sure that I learn as much as I can, building relationships with people. But I didn't say, oh, I don't have the skills, I don't have the knowledge, I'm just not going to apply, I'm just not going to try. I had conversations and I said, this is who I am and this is what I offer. And I will work, and there will be blood, sweat, and tears, and I will deliver as best as I can with the support. But I'm raising my hand, and my hand was acknowledged. So always remember to bet on yourself, because no one's going to do it on your behalf. If you keep taking yourself out, 99% of the time, nobody's going to come running after you to say, hey, come back, there's an opportunity. So remember, guys, bet on yourself. Thank you so much for the opportunity. In closing, I want to leave you with one of my favorite quotes, which is, you miss 100% of the opportunities you don't take. And I also want to remind you that you have 100% success rate. That means every day you wake up, you're breathing. That's 100% success rate. So don't count yourself out. Take those opportunities, take the race, set your course, and pursue your goals with determination, because your career is in your hands. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Motate. Guys, that was something. So there's a couple of key things that she mentioned that I'm gonna just go over. Also, guys, we're gonna be closing around 8 because we still have Yolanda coming up as our next speaker. So hold tight, don't go just yet. So one of the things that she mentioned was being disciplined is a gift to yourself. I really love that. Like I wrote it down. Maybe because I love tattoos, this will be my next tattoo, who knows? Do it scared. I love that a lot. Failing forward, something that I advocate for. And then also that failure is a stepping stone, towards success. Those were the 4 big points for me. I really love them, So yeah, and guys, the last one was bet on yourself. Nipizing a Betway. When it comes to Betway, you guys put a lot of money, but when it comes to betting on yourself, dololo, nothing. So guys, we're gonna move on to our last speaker, a firework, a firecracker, a trailblazer, Yolanda. So Yolanda, please come through. It's your time to shine. Phakama sisi. So that people can see you. And then guys, please stick by. This is our last speaker, and then we're gonna make it hot. Yolanda, welcome.
Hi everyone. I'm hoping everyone can see me. Obviously we need proof of life. Again, not AI, real person. And I'm looking forward to speaking to you guys. So I'm just gonna drop off from the video. And wow. What powerful speakers. Literally took off almost everything that I wanted to discuss. So I've had to pivot. Pivot is very important in everything that we do. And I thought, just listening to the speakers before me and, the pearls of wisdom that they've shared with us, I think then mine is the practical, how it has actually worked in my life. I love telling my story. I love telling where I've come from, where I've been, what I've done. And I've literally implemented, I think, about 99% of what the ladies have spoken about. And so I'm going to take you through that journey and highlight where certain things have come in and how that's actually helped me to get to my next. I always talk about, getting to your next, and that's sort of the driver to your true north. So now my name is Yolanda Pokwada, born and raised in a small location, well, not small, big location in Tanzania in the Eastern Cape. I do not come from a wealthy family, but I come from a family that values education, that values hard work. And so I think for me, that's just one of the things that's always, driven me. I remember growing up, my mom had me at a young age. And I remember the story of when she had to write matric and sort of the things that she had to overcome so that she could write matric, so that she could get to her next. I remember my granny telling me that phone lines from my house were cut because this was in the heart of apartheid. And so many schools had opted not to write their matric exams. And so if you were found to even be studying, even having a candle or light in your house, you were thought, now you are studying, and so they would try burn your house down. And so they cut the phone lines in my house. But that didn't deter my mother from continuing to study and finishing her matric. So this is the thing that drives me, because that is, where I base a lot of my resilience from in terms of my career and the trajectory of my career. So my career started off, I think I was 19 years old in 2006. It starts off as a vacation job. And in this vacation job, I'm supposed to be a data capturer. Data capture is nothing, and it's a 3-month vacation job, and I do this job within 2 months. The month where I am sitting idle, I see that my boss, or the head of governance at the time, is preparing to roll out a governance framework. Now, this is called putting your, what did the doctor say? Put your name in the hat. And I did not have to put my name in the hat, but because I'm a person that always wants to learn, always wants to grow, I put my name in the hat and I say, listen, I want to learn about corporate governance. What is corporate governance? What is this framework that you are rolling out? And why is it so important to you? And so my head drives around. I was in Cape Town at the time, drives around, and he's showing me, vagrants on the street, and he's showing me land where they aren't able to build. He's showing me areas where they've built shacks, but they can't move people out. And he basically builds the story around, how legislation is written matters, and how legislation is interpreted matters, because it impacts the man on the street. This hit home hard. And this was where I decided what I was going to be. So my true north became the fact that I wanted to influence how legislation is written, and there be a practical consideration on the impact that it would have on the man on the street. And it was such a pivotal moment when the speaker before me spoke about your true north, and me realizing that, oh, snap, I'm there, regulatory, advisory, and oversight. I influence now how legislation impacts financial services. Oh man, am I at my true north? I don't know yet. But anyway, so in the space at the Treasury, and I'm learning about corporate governance, one of the things that I value is always putting your hand up. I get the opportunity to assist with this corporate governance framework. Again, I've said, I know nothing. I have Umatric. Standard 10, that's all I have. I'm still studying for my undergrad. And I put up my hand to say, I just want to do the introduction. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the corporate governance framework presentations. And this thing is done at a ministerial level. It is done to heads of departments, so very senior people. this program was a program that I was only supporting in terms of making sure that invites were sent out and all of these good things. Within maybe, let's say, 2-3 months, I was running the entire program. And it's very important when you put your hand up to always solicit feedback. So when I put my hand up, because I felt like, okay, I'm not prepared, I don't know what it is I'm doing, I'm learning on the fly, one of the first things that I always did was to solicit feedback. How did everything go? How can we improve? What can I do better next time? And so I think when I started running that entire program, I had, made myself invaluable to the organization. Now, in making yourself invaluable to the organization, it means that even when you leave, your name still stays behind. So if you look at my profile, you'll notice that there was a gap when I went to the office of the Premier. But my stint at the office of the Premier was not long, simply because when I left a gap because no one else could do what I had been doing. So no one else could run that entire program end to end. And they had to actually call me back to come back and run this entire program. I always am wary of, operating on autopilot. I've always got this thing that says that once you've learned how to do something well and you feel like you're operating on autopilot, you become complacent. As professionals, I believe that we are a brand, and our brand speaks for us in rooms that we are not in, right? And so if you become complacent, you end up making silly mistakes. So you always have to find yourself the next logical thing to do in your career progression. So when I became complacent or I felt like I had reached my ceiling in terms of rolling out the corporate governance framework, my immediate next was to look at, how legislation is drafted in a government sort of environment. And so I got to exposure into illegal and policy. And at the time, they were still drafting, I think it was POPI and the Consumer Protection Act. Again, guys, I only have my matric. I am still studying. I'm not even doing well at school, just to be honest. I'm still studying, but I'm that person that's going to tell you that I want to learn. So I'm always hungry to learn. And here I have an opportunity to learn. I have this conversation, with the head at the time. And he says, okay, Yolanda, if this is what you believe you want to do next, and you can still do that thing that you've been doing and you've been doing it so well, sure, go ahead. And I get into the space where I feel so uncomfortable. I don't believe that I'm in the right space. Yes, I said I wanted to do it, but I don't believe that I'm in the right space now. Gwababa has gotten me, imposter syndrome is here. I'm not the girl for this. Now, the previous speaker also spoke about, having that specific and strategic partnerships. And so I had, because I like talking also, I had made very strong relationships with people within the legal department. And so through those engagements, I got the opportunity to understand legal interpretation. How do you interpret legislation? How do you draft legislation? What are the key words that you can use and can't use when you're drafting legislation? All those good things. And I had to sit with these colleagues of mine within the legal department to say, I've put my hand up in this space. I don't understand it, but I want to learn. And when you put your hand up and you say you want to learn, you're going to find people that are actually interested in teaching you. And once you've found those people, you build lifelong relationships, because those are the very same people that I still rely on today. As part of this journey, I then get an opportunity to move to a corporate setting. So I moved to Old Mutual, and again, I felt like I'd hit the ceiling. I've learned everything that I could learn from a government institution. I then wanted to experience corporate. And I've always heard that, in corporate, they've got all the tools, the technology to implement all of these good things. So I step into a role as an assistant compliance officer. Now, in the time when I was in the provincial treasury, obviously I'd picked up all these skills. I'd learned all of these things. And I step into this corporate environment and I'm like, man, it's not as great as people told me it's going to be, and there's something about learning from grassroots, where something is built and made and where something is being implemented. It's two completely different things. In the corporate environment, this is where legislation is now, implemented, and I'm getting to see these tools and systems that they've built. And I'm like, oh, wait. But when I was sitting in these legal and policy sessions, they would always speak about the spirit of the act, and they would always speak about, the processes that they were trying to deal and manage or mitigate. And so I had this passion in my heart, and I said, okay, I'm going to challenge the status quo. Do not be afraid of challenging the status quo, especially if it's driven by data. If you've got the knowledge, if you have built that knowledge base, so if you are sitting on the right industry bodies, if you are educating yourself in the field that you're in, if you're actively engaging with other professionals in that same industry, and you feel convicted enough to make a change, do that. Especially if you're in an environment where your organization allows you to innovate. So in this space, I come in and I say, I think we can do it better. What we are doing here, we can do better. And this is how I think it can be done better. It's very important to also have conversations with your line managers and take them on the journey that you want to be on. Do not operate as an island. There are people that are going to support you, and then there are people that are not going to support you. Understand who you are dealing with. So, as I've said, I've spoken to my line manager. My line manager says, okay, cool, test what you want to test out. Now, at the end of the day, I don't manage seats, I don't manage whatever, I manage the output. And if the output gives value to the business, happiness. So I innovate, I test out, I roll out my processes, I've got my first reporting, going to business. Business is like, something is different. Okay, we've never seen it being done this way, but okay, we see value. And I carry on working in that manner until my business comes to me and says, okay, because Wena, you are so innovative, we need you to run an investigation for us. Now, in my profession, we do monitoring, but our methodology on how we do monitoring is very different from monitoring that would be done under an audit profession. Again, learn and make sure that when you are learning and you are challenging the status quo, again, have the data that backs up your arguments. So I'm asked to do an investigation. Obviously, the methodology that I'm currently using in terms of my compliance framework is not it. And I have this conversation with my line manager, and I say, I think I need to use audit methodology. I'm not an auditor by profession, but to add value to the business, this is what I need to do. And what this practically means for me is that I need to study this thing. I need to do maybe a course or tunyana here. Boss says, okay, great, do whatever you need to do, Yolanda, as long as you add value to the business. I do this and I sit, I do the audit. And now if you know the compliance profession, it's very much legislation driven. And now my audit now starts showing up technology. And I'm now auditing technology. I don't audit technology. I've never done that. I don't know how it works, but I end up doing it anyway. Give the report to the executives, and the executives now get me into a room and they say, Yolanda, great, thanks. You've audited everything that we needed you to audit. This is your recommendations. This is what we're saying. This was, I think, the most pivotal moment for me. This was my turning point in my career, because in implementing everything that I'd implemented and having the courage to say, I don't believe we are doing it right. Can I try another way? It gave me access to very senior people within the organization. And people speak to other people. The industries are so small. Because as soon as that was done, I had the opportunity to go into Nedbank. I had never even applied to go there. I don't know how they got me. And in the function that I was going to in Nedbank, it was in the technology space. There are very few compliance professionals that can enter into a technology space. And again, I attest this to the ability to learn and not be afraid to challenge status quo and not be bound by, my mandate and what I am expected to do. Where I believe I needed to challenge the status quo, I was not afraid to do it. So this opportunity in Nedbank presents itself, and I am sitting again on executive levels now. I have no idea how I've gotten here. And I get there, and it's not what I'd expected to be covered within that business unit. And again, do not be afraid. When companies, employ you, they employ you because you're a professional. They know that you know what it is that you're supposed to be doing and how you're supposed to be doing it. And so if you have the ability to guide them and the courage to guide them in the right way of doing things, then do that. And so I got there, and what we were doing was not necessarily anything related to technology. But again, the wind was very much your poppies, which had a lot of implications on technology itself. And so I have to start having the difficult conversations with my execs to say, guys, how we've positioned ourselves as a function within this space and what we are covering is not necessarily what we need to be covering. And I believe that this is how we need to operate. Again, always have those key conversations, because in those key conversations, it was again, Yolanda, do what it is that you believe we need to be doing. And if you test it out and if business finds value in it, then that's what we're going to do. That's how we're going to pivot. That's how we change strategy. And I did that, but my stint there wasn't so long. This was probably the shortest stint in my career because, again, there's someone else that's pulling me. Again, I was still happy. I didn't feel the need to move, but another opportunity presents itself. Again, it's within the technology space. Somehow they'd become aware of me within Nedbank, and they wanted me to move into their space. So I ended up moving to Standard Bank to support the digital banking. So your banking apps, USSD, your e-commerce stores. And what essentially happens there is that I am now in a big organization, and I would ideally drown in the number of compliance professionals in the organization. So Standard Bank has a very big compliance function. But because, again, the pieces of work that I've done previously are pieces of work that support me now in what it is that I'm going to be doing. Strategy changes within the organization. They are going through a digitization journey, and exemptions from the regulator have fallen away. So a lot of people are going to be losing their jobs. Branches are going to be closed. And they say, Yolanda, we need to move your brick and mortar elements of the business to digital platforms also. You've done the work at Old Mutual. You've done the work at Nedbank. Guide us in terms of how do we get there? What are the things that we need to do? Again, I'm astounded by, how my name has moved across with me everywhere I've gone. And the pieces of work that I've done way back in 2009 are still following me in 2016, when I feel like I've even lost the skill. And during that time, I fall pregnant. There's something about when you're having your first child, and you now realize how fast you need to move in terms of where you want to go. So I have my first child. Things change dramatically. I come back from work, and I go back to hand in my resignation, because again, another opportunity has presented itself. In all these things that I've been doing, I've always, again, put up my hand for things that I was not comfortable in. But now I've got a child, and I don't have the capacity to learn, and I need grace because I'm going through certain things. And by God's grace, I find myself in a position where I am, and I don't, it's a very weird way to look at it, but my skill is not used as much, right? And during that time, the one thing that I think I realized in that position was the skills that I'd learned throughout my entire career were the very same skills that this organization was searching for outside. So they bring a Deloitte in to provide guidance in the stuff that we were doing. And that was a pivotal moment for me to say, if a Deloitte can come in and provide the same advice that I would give to my organization that I'm paying for, then I'm ready for my next. I'm ready for whatever is going to come my way. And that's when I started partnering up with Life Coach Sbu, because at that point, I kept on saying, I feel like I am stagnating. I feel like I'm an autopilot. I'm not learning anything. And yes, it's grace. And the first message that Sbu asked me, or the first conversation that he had with me, and he asked me was, what is your business saying? What are your stakeholders saying about you? Because when you can come back and you can tell me that you feel like you've stagnated, what is your performance saying? Or what are your stakeholders saying about your performance? And I'm saying the performance feedback is saying, great, excellent, there's no issues. Then he said, then give yourself the grace. And I got now opportunities to be heads of areas. So I think in my entire career, the first thing that I've learned is put your hand up. Put your hand up if you really feel like you want it. They're not going to give it to you. There was that song, Banina, Zoitola Ganja, no one's going to give it to you. If you're going to sit idle and you don't put your hand up, no one's going to give it to you. If you've got the knowledge, if you've got the data, and you feel like you can make an improvement in your methodologies, in your processes, put your hand up, do it. Because in doing it, you're going to show up in places that you do not know. Number 3, imposter syndrome is real. You're always going to feel like, you don't know it, especially if you're starting out. You don't know it, you're not doing it right. You just feel inadequate. Solicit feedback. And in soliciting feedback, when the feedback says, yeah, sure, fine, you're not doing it right, pivot, research, how do I do it right? Speak to the right people that can guide you in how to do it right, so that by the next time you have to show up and show off, you show off in the way that you expect yourself to. The ladies have spoken about having a clear direction, having vision for your career and your career development. Have that vision, but do not be afraid to pivot. Nothing is cast in stone. You can change any and everything you want to change. But make sure that when you are doing that change, it is something that you are actually sure about. Because things are difficult, because you're having difficult conversations in the workplace, does not necessarily mean that you need to pivot. So you must also be able to have very frank conversations with yourself and hold yourself accountable, because it's not nice if you're sitting in a boardroom and someone else has to hold you accountable. So if you are honest with yourself and you're able to pivot in the right way to where you need to go, you won't have to have those difficult conversations. And I think the last one for me is have a tribe. In all of the places that I've been in all of the places that I've moved into, I've always had a tribe. The one thing that I give myself grace in is that I don't need to know it all, but I need to have people around me that know it. Whatever it looks like, I have to have those people around me, and I will sponge off every last information from them, because we will talk about things, we will deal issues. How do you handle this type of scenario? And I learn from them so that I'm able to answer questions or deal matters in the same manner that they would, because they are experts in those spaces. And I think in closing, the one thing I live my life by this poem, and I'd like to close with it. It's Our Deepest Fear by Marianne Williamson. It goes, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? And I'll leave it there. Thank you, Spoo.
Woo! That was powerful, Yolanda. I loved it. I really loved it. Somebody in the comments, they said they like your approach to things. I like it too. I think it's very practical. How you moved around, how you move on, from one segment to the other, and then just pushing your career progression. I really like that. And the fact that all of our three speakers were sort of like on the same boat when it comes to everything. I think it was truly amazing. So guys, we did it. That was our first webinar. Big shout out to all of our speakers. I think you guys were amazing. You guys delivered. You guys dropped some knowledge. And to everybody who came through, guys, thank you so much. We did it. These webinars are going to start being our staple, guys. So look out for the one in October. We've got another one coming up, because we keep getting more and more people saying, I'm putting my hand up. I want to be a speaker. I want to inspire other people, So yeah, thank you to everybody who came. But Dr. Oleuheng Silebi, thank you so much. Mutate Suelo, thank you so much for coming through. Yolanda Bokwana, thank you guys. I truly appreciate you. So I'm going to remove the presentation. I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to wave at everybody. And then guys, we will definitely catch you on the next one. I really appreciate you guys coming through. So my speakers, if you want to put your cameras on very quickly, and then you can just wave a goodbye to everyone. I would really appreciate that. Guys, take care. And then we will definitely catch you in the next one. Thank you, guys. Mwah! We are out of here. Sharp.